This talk is about whether we should be concerned about free riding in retail. It's in the context of recent EU decisions regarding the behaviour of certain offline or bricks and mortar stores with regard to the retailing of online products. For instance, perfume manufacturers were essentially banning online sales of their products, and French courts struck that down. The same issues arose with respect to hi-fi equipment as well. I'm basically skeptical about whether there really is a free riding defence for such practices as selective distribution and most favoured nation clauses. This talk is about whether we should be concerned about free riding in retail. This is in the context of recent EU decisions regarding whether perfume manufacturers, for instance, could ban online retailing of their products. The same issues arose with respect to hi-fi equipment. So let's consider the arguments. I'm going to go back a bit to an older argument. Imagine you've got a bricks and mortar store, and suppose that someone in that store walked into that store that offered credit cards like Visa. The problem for the merchant in that store is, of course, every time someone uses a credit card, they have to pay Visa a fee. So there would be a temptation to convince consumers to instead use cash, perhaps by charging a surcharge for the credit card. Credit card companies realize this, and in order to prevent such behavior, if merchants accepted credit cards, they would have to comply with a no surcharge rule that essentially prevented those merchants from offering a higher prices for credit card transactions. That took away any potential advantages they might see for cash and obviously kept the dollars humming the credit card's way. Now in Australia, they got rid of the no surcharge rule, and while it was argued that this rule was to lead to credit card companies not promoting as much the credit cards, and after all, the idea was they were bringing all these customers to these stores. Instead, there was no actual difference in credit card use. Jump ahead to today, and of course, the bricks and mortar stores are on the other side of this whole debate. They offer, say, a product to their consumers, show them the different options. Everything is paid for, things like that. Not paid for, demonstrated. But then the consumer whips out their mobile phone, looks up the price in Amazon and sees, it's 5% less. So off they go to the online retailer instead, after the jewelry store, from its perspective, has done all the hard work. Clearly, jewelers are going to be more interested in stocking products that didn't have this problem. So, as part of the distribution agreements, sometimes manufacturers engage in what's called a retail MFN that prevents the sort of discounting online that with respect to offline. Basically, you have to offer the same sort of price. But also, sometimes when that can't be monitored or is hard to do, they engage in selective distribution, and selective distribution involves banning the online channel altogether. Now, the issue that an economist has with all of these different vertical practices is that in a competitive market, at the very least, there are alternative business models, or actually not just a competitive market, in any market, there are alternative business models that the consumer could apply, the merchant could apply. For instance, to get around the no surcharge rule, you can pay the customer. In other words, if there is no surcharge rule, the credit card associations can provide inducements for the customers to use credit cards at the point of sale and resist any temptation to take a discount. Retail MFN, instead of a retail MFN, why can't the offline retailer match those discounts? Why is it that Amazon's able to charge a lower price when they are not? After all, they've already got the customer in the store, so they don't have to incur any additional shipping charges. It's not clear there's an issue there. Finally, we could have a change in the pattern of ownership in the industry. It's sometimes argued that, for instance, online stores require offline stores so that consumers can feel the products, understand them, and any other things as well. If you got rid of all these practices, where would those ones go? Well, obviously with selected distribution, there's not much help there. But for other ones, what would happen? Well, the answer is that the online stores would have to work it out. They'd have to either have a physical presence or alternatively, as Amazon's done recently, try and pay commissions for online sales to offline stores that are independent from it. So we see loyalty rewards, we see a better service, and we also see changes in integration, such as that provided by Apple in its retail stores, that are alternative business models to take into account the change in circumstances coming from competition from the internet. In summary, therefore, new technologies actually compel business experimentation. The issues arise when existing firms who engage in facilitating practices also have market power and might shut down online business models. Market power or facilitated collusive practices can distort such experimentation. What you want to do is not have a blanket prohibition on these vertical practices, but instead regulate them in the cases where there is market power and otherwise allow efficiency to guide evolution elsewhere. To put this in simple terms, there is a right to be stupid because stupidity is sometimes right. Some of these practices from offline stores seem very antiquated and likely to bite them back and not really work. But you never know. There might be something important in it, and they have every right to experiment as much as anyone else. The issue is only when they have market power. And free riding just has no efficiency defense basis, certainly in the face of market power.